Hello, my name is BJ Paris. Welcome to Tapping Into His Treasures. Today is Valentine's Day, 2011. So I'm wearing red, and I'd like to wish you all a happy Valentine's Day. Oh, let me show you my pretty bouquet of flowers from my kids. They're beautiful. I don't know why I didn't think about doing a love story or a story about God being our heart today, but I didn't. So our theme is the anchor holds. Anchor, a heavy object attached to a vessel by a cable or rope and cast overboard to keep the vessel in place either by its weight or by its flukes, which grip the bottom. The triangular blade at the end of an arm of an anchor designed to catch in the ground. I always knew what an anchor was, but I never knew until this week when I looked it up on the internet about the flukes on the bottom that grip the bottom. I never knew about that. And I love that we learn something new every day. We've all seen movies of ships being tossed and turned in heavy winds on raging seas. Those weren't only movies. Ships journey on raging seas every hour of every day. Anchors have been used thousands of times in history, not only to secure boats and ships, but to keep them from overturning. Anchors not only hold the vessel in place, sometimes they are used just to slow down the vessel. The word ship is often used to describe a Christian on his journey with Christ. A battered ship would signify one going through turmoil. Jesus is our anchor. He holds us up. He keeps us from sinking. He keeps us from going adrift. Often, after our conversion to Christ, the devil comes and he taunts us. We start missing our worldly friends and our old way of life. Our friends try to put a guilt trip on us for not thinking the same way they do anymore. We feel torn. We struggle mentally, and it wears on us. Do you know what I'm talking about? That's when Jesus becomes an anchor to us. He stabilizes us. Other situations may be a lot worse. You may be sinking in mire. Someone may be watching their beloved little daughter who used to play with dolls, prostituting herself. Someone's son who used to play with matchbox trucks may now be in jail and is breaking his parents' heart. God is your anchor, parents, and God is your anchor, young people. Perhaps you are an elderly person who never gets a visit from your family anymore. God wants to be your anchor. Maybe you are in a 6 by 9 foot cell today, more alone than you've ever been. God is your anchor. Your situation may seem bleak in that cell, but God has a plan for your life. God is so faithful to put you in a place where He can teach you and show you His love, whether you are rich or poor, whether you are healthy or sick. Probably the hardest group for God to work with are those that are extremely comfortable in this life. When I was exploring the internet for anchor stories last week, I searched for stories involving odysseys about ships at sea. I found several. In most cases, veteran sailors did not set sail until everything on their list was checked off. These sailors sailed all around the world. They were experienced. They were prepared. They were ready. They were confident that nothing could go wrong. Yet, things did go wrong, things beyond their control. Several couples thought it was over for them. In each case, the ship's anchors saved them, and in each case, undoubtedly, it was God, the divine anchor, behind their rescues. If you care to check out some of these stories on the internet, there are pictures of their vessels and detailed accounts of their rescues by the Coast Guard. I think it would do everybody good to rent a DVD of sailing odysseys and to watch the conditions that sailors have survived. In doing so, you could compare yourself to those sailors and become more cognizant of Christ's involvement in your life. One of my sons attempted to sail the East Coast by himself one year and had an odyssey of his own. He was in a 28-foot sailboat, and I was beside myself because he was going by himself solo. I knew that my prayers are what saved him. When I heard of the raging seas and the winds and like hurricane-like conditions out to sea, I knew that my prayers made a significant difference. But it wasn't until I watched the adventures of an English woman's sailing journey, watching her sails torn on her sailboat and ripped from her vessel, that I really began to understand what my son had gone through. We don't give God enough credit for all the things He saves us from. If it were not for Jesus, our anchor, we would go way off course. If we were not alcoholics already, we would become alcoholics because the pain that life inflicts upon us is unbearable. But He saves us from that. I'm not making up stories. I get stories every day that come on the prayer chain over the email. And just last week, there was a woman who was 7 months pregnant in a car accident. Her baby died, and she almost died. Can you imagine what she's going through? So no, this isn't the movies. This is real life. This is real drama. And I guarantee you that God is her anchor today. She's got a void here, but God is her anchor. If He wasn't, she would be dead. What about the miners in Chile? He certainly was their anchor. What about, I know there's a lot of kidnappings, but what about those kidnappings where the police come and tell the parents that their child has actually been found unharmed? God was their anchor. When I was in the hospital as a teenage girl and had this blood transfusion, and it went bad, and it was during the night, and I couldn't speak, and I was dying, and that person, supposedly an orderly or doctor, who walked down the hallway at 3 o'clock in the morning and heard my little whimpering and saved me. That was God in disguise. He was my anchor. And you have situations of your own that God is your anchor today and every day. When I got attacked by that pit bull, this far from my face with his fangs, God was my anchor. And what about the plane over the Hudson River in New York with all the passengers standing on the wings? Was God not the anchor for all the people on that plane? He was. Where are you spiritually today? Maybe you're at a crossroads in your walk with Christ. Maybe you're at a place where two seas meet. Maybe you're considering throwing in the towel. Yesterday, my Bible teacher, Sylvia, taught our class that the disciples actually left Jesus and went their ways because they thought His teachings were too hard. I don't know how long they stayed away from Him, but I know that they had a free will. Maybe that's where you are today. Well, I was at that place myself many years ago. I had a decision, or I had made a decision not to go back to church. I was so busy. It was like I just couldn't fit it into my schedule anymore. You know, raising kids and all. And then and not only that, the mental struggle. I thought it was a mental struggle that I probably brought on myself and was blaming it on God. But then I received a phone call from a woman from my church. Her name was Charla. She encouraged me to go back to church. She didn't condemn me. She didn't criticize me. She didn't judge me. She just encouraged me. I sensed in my spirit that Jesus was talking to me through her, and I obeyed Him and went back to church that very night. That woman, an instrument of God, my divine anchor, saved my life. Now that I look back and reminisce about those times, I see more clearly, and I appreciate her minister to me more. I have even tried to search for her, but I can't find her to thank her appropriately. A new day is coming. A new day came for me. You know, the light that the prophet Isaiah wrote about in Isaiah 30:26, when he said, The light of the moon will be like the light of the sun, and the light of the sun will be sevenfold, like the light of 7 days condensed in one. In the day that the Lord binds up the hurt of his people and heals their wounds. Well, I'm no theologian, and I don't know exactly to what that verse implies, but I know this. I was a hurting and wounded soul, and I stayed with him through thick and through thin, and he came through for me. And the light in my life today is like the light of the sun condensed to 7 days in one, and he wants to do the same for you. When Jeremiah the prophet said in Jeremiah 31:13b, the wilderness shall become a fruitful field and a valued forest, and your mourning will be turned to gladness and joy. This is what God has done for me, and this is what God wants to do for you. My wilderness has become a fruitful field, and my mourning has been turned to gladness and joy. And yours will too if you allow the Lord to be your anchor. God was my anchor a few days ago. Let me have a sip of this coffee first. God was my anchor a few days ago, and I'm just going to tell you this without reading. I was putting together some photo albums. Was barricaded in here in the snow and the ice. I couldn't go anyplace, which are really my favorite kind of days. But in doing so, I had to accumulate some pictures, old pictures, because I was doing the album in chronological order as best that I could. And I went to my front hall closet where I had some pictures, and a postcard fell out from amongst some pictures. And I didn't have my glasses on, so I couldn't read it, but I could see that it was a long word squeezed into a small space on the postcard. And I squinted and saw that it said Connecticut, which is where I used to come from. Some of my family lived there. And because I was busy, I didn't read it. I just tossed it back into the box. So the next day, I had dragged all the pictures out into the kitchen because I'm just involved in moving around some stuff. And I went to this one box to get some pictures. And as I turned the box over on its side, of all the pictures that were in that box, like probably 100, one thing fell onto the floor. And it was the same postcard with the word Connecticut written on it. And I picked it up again. I tossed it back into the box. And you know that inner voice that always catches us? That inner voice said to me, read it. So I went in the box and I got the postcard and I read it. And I think I have written down here what it says. This part I really should read to you. Oh, I guess it's not all here. It read, Dear Nana. Now I'm going to tell you the rest in a minute, but keep in mind what I've mentioned to you on this show before, that I lost my grandson TJ, whose real name is Anthony. I lost him last year, October '09. And this postcard was written 20 years ago in 1991. And he was 4 years old going on 5. I lived in Maryland, and they lived in Connecticut. And apparently, he told his mommy what to write, and then he signed it. He signed it, Love, Anthony. So the postcard read, Dear Nana, I love you very much. I love you with all my heart, and I miss you, and I can't wait to see you again. Now, my grandson is in heaven today. I'm positive of it. And all week last week, I put his picture, which was a couple of feet away from me, I put it right next to me last week, before any of this happened. And I kissed that picture 3 times every day and spoke to him. And I truly believe that he received those kisses, and God allowed him to return his love to me in this unusual way. Now it gets better. Here I am with the postcard, Connecticut, and on the reverse side, this little Dear Nana, I love you, I can't wait to see you again, I love you with all my heart. My eyes focus on the postmark at the top of the postcard. The postmark was August 22nd, 1991, 20 years ago. August 22nd, the date of the postcard, was the last day that I saw my grandson alive in '09. I began to cry from my soul, and I cried and I sobbed from my soul for a long time because it was a cherished gift given to me from God. My grandson was returning my love. It's not a coincidence. August 22nd, 20 years ago on the postmark, the same day that I saw him for the last time. In just the unusual way that it came into my observation. That postcard was mixed in with hundreds and thousands of pictures, and God brought it right to my face in front of my eyes. And I even threw it aside. He had to nudge me 2 or 3 times to read it. Isn't he wonderful? He was an anchor for my soul. God was my soul's anchor when he gave me that beautiful happening. I knew you'd enjoy that. That's why I really wanted to pass it on to you. I even called my son and I shared it with him. I didn't mean to stir up memories, but I had to. Oh, well, let me just say one more thing. With an event like this, things like this don't happen a lot. That particular day, I was more in tune to God than I usually am. I mean, I'm writing about God all the time, but writing isn't the same as being on your knees and in prayer and focused on God. There's a big difference. In that day, I was focused on God. I wasn't writing. I was confessed up to date, asking him to take off the old and put on the new, and I was focused on him like never before. And I think that if we purpose to get that way before God, that maybe we would experience more of these happenings in our lives. God is your anchor. Just as he was an anchor to my soul that day, God is your anchor. And just as an anchor gives security, he is your security. He's our security. You are so secure in him that nobody can take you out of the Father's hand. And that's found in John 10:28. I'd like to share something from my friend Pastor Robert Colby, who lives in Rockland. Some of you may be interested in this. He's in his 80s, and he's been preaching all of his life, and he's not content to sit and read and watch TV. He continues to minister from his home with his wife as a helpmate. Her name is Dottie. I'd like to give you their address and their phone number and tell you what he offers from his home. Some of you who don't feel comfortable going to a regular church edifice, you might find just what you're looking for through these precious people. It's Pastor Robert Colby, 231 Lime Rock Street, number 10, Rockland, Maine. Phone 207-594-4155. He does Bible studies in his home. He gives away free CDs with gospel message on them. I personally take a Bible psychology class at his house every Tuesday morning, and phenomenal class. He would like you to call for information, 594-4155, and you're all welcome. I wanted to squeeze that in now so I didn't run out of time. Here's another thing. How personal God is, and how faithful he is to put us to a place where he can minister to us. He's doing that to you right now. This is just coming to me this moment. A lot of people won't walk inside of a church building because they're delusioned by their friends who aren't mature Christians or what they would expect a Christian to be. God wants you, even though you don't want to go into a church edifice. He wants you, and He's creating for you an atmosphere where you can go to somebody's house and ask all the questions you want to ask and just be yourself and relax. And it's all free. So take advantage of this. Won't you consider it? Let God be your anchor this week. Think about all those Odysseys and all those sailors out to sea. Just think about all those events and think about the times in your life where your life has been tossing and turning just the same way. And thank God afresh for what He's done for you. Thanks for watching. God bless you and God bless yours. God keep you and God keep yours. And I'm going to end this in a separate section by playing something for you. I won't tell you what it is. I'll surprise you. It's either going to be a song or a prayer that I wrote. Bye for now.